What is up, everyone? It is I, Carlton Flowers, your crypto pro.
Yay!
And tonight we need to take a look at the Bitcoin action because it has been several days since my last update and we have some significant action that we have to talk about. But first, let's get rid of my handsome face and we can focus here on the 4-hour chart. I wanted to get this video up 2 days ago to talk about the possibility of a correction. Lo and behold, that did come true and we are in the midst of that correction. And looking at this 4-hour chart, there are two things that really jump out at me. When the correction first started to pick up steam, I thought we had a possibility of bouncing on the 50 EMA line. This was right when we had this crossover on the stochastic right here. But the MACD oscillators had already crossed over here and they were looking bearish and sealing down further south. So I really thought that we were going to jump up here and then continue the correction. But as we can see, after this crossover right here, it was a fake out because then we turned back and crossed over bearish again in midstream. Now, what do we see at this moment? Another crossover right there. We've got the fast line curling up and crossing over that slow line. Can we depend on that? No, we cannot. And I'll tell you what, it's kind of going to be a hit and miss, and it's something we're just going to have to watch and see what happens. And the reason is this big, huge volume node right there that's sticking out on the chart here. And let's get the price on that. It's right at around 41,100. So we're currently at a price of 44,656, and it looks like the next possible landing spot could be at that big volume node. Now, if we don't go down, the next node that is sticking out would be up here after we get through this little slip zone, which would bring us back up to about 45,983. But when we look at the 1-day chart, we get a little bit better idea of where the overall momentum is headed. I need to change this chart because we can't see the prices here. Let's clear this out and scrunch this in. I just realized that we did not have the prices there. There we have it. That's looking a lot better. So right now, as we speak, with this amount of action on the screen, the point of control price for the visible range is 39,066. And we see this great big volume node sticking out right here. The last thing I want to point out, well, a couple things here before we move to the 1-day chart. Pardon me. Let me get some coffee here. All right, much better. The couple things that I want to point out are the fact that, first of all, we have the support resistance zone here that we could come and touch down and test the top of. And then we notice that the 200 EMA, which is crawling up, we could come down and test that line. And that's right below the top of the support resistance zone. But if we fall back into this box, into this rectangle here, the shaded area, we could slip down below that 200 EMA and test the bottom of that channel before we move back up. Now, normally I would say there's a good chance of coming all the way back down to the POC. But with the fact that there is so much buying pressure going on and talk of institutional purchases, I don't know if we'll correct down that far. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have some crazy black swan event, because let's say if someone like the government decides to dig up and resurrect the Tether FUD story, that could be a big enough piece of FUD to cause the Bitcoin price to go all the way back down to the previously projected levels that we thought we were going to correct to. For now, we don't see that happening. Okay, the second thing is the bearishness of the MACD. We see that the fast line and the slow line are aggressively headed south, and we are printing some serious negative bars underneath the zero line. Now, as far as when this is going to turn around and start scooping back up and after a crossover of the fast and slow line, I don't know, because we see that the fast and the slow line are diverging away from each other. In other words, the distance between the two lines is getting wider. See how that gap is widening as we're going down. And plus, instead of a negative momentum that kind of starts to say look like an airplane coming in for a landing, we don't have that. We see it kind of curling over and getting more negative. So that's kind of a scary thing, which tells me that this crossover may not hold. Plus, we've got a lot of negative volume on the regular volume bars up here on the price chart. And this small little green tick, we got one little green candle here that may not end up holding out, but we see that volume is settling down. Okay, so let's clear this out and jump to the 1 day chart and see what it looks like from here. This gives us a really good idea of what's going on, and the biggest thing that sticks out like a sore thumb here is the price action settling down on the 50 EMA. We're sitting right smack on the line. Is that the 50 EMA or is that the 200? That's the 200. I stand corrected. We are sitting on the 200 EMA. First, we bounced off of it as support, and now there's a chance that we could violate it and lose it, which I think is going to happen. And the reason is this very ugly looking stochastic. Look at that crossover that happened here. First, we had a bearish crossover and it was a fake out. Whoops, that's supposed to be an arrow. Let me get an arrow there. There's the bearish fake out, and then we turned back up. And now we had a crossover, a bearish crossover. But now look at the angle of descent of the fast and the slow line after this second bearish crossover. We are pointing straight down. Here's the other indication to me that tells us that this correction is not over. Look at this. You've got the fast line approaching the slow line on the MACD oscillators. They haven't crossed yet, but look at the direction of that blue line. It's headed right towards the orange, and we're going to have a crossover that's more than likely going to happen within the next day or two. Also, what do we see downstairs in the MACD histogram? We see these green bars that have gone from dark green to light green. And that tells us that the momentum is going negative. Let's zoom in on this so you can really see it. All right, here we are. So we've got the dark green, and then we went negative here with the light green, saying that we were losing momentum. Then we went back to positive momentum with all of these dark green bars, and now it's back to light again as we are approaching the zero line. Okay, here's the zero line on the MACD right there. See this zero? There you have it. And I think that the oscillators are probably going to make it down here and then dip down, kind of like that. All right. Now, what can we expect looking upstairs on the price chart with the volume profile? Well, we can look at these big nodes, and for those of you who don't know what this is the volume profile, the one that's vertical. We call it VPVR. This is the volume on the horizontal, which is how much is bought and sold at any particular time. And then we say that if more is bought than sold, you get a green candle. And if more is sold than bought, you get a red candle. So here we have the regular volume down here, and then we have the volume profile here that is based on how much volume is at a particular price. What is bought and sold at 40,000? What was bought and sold at 48,000? So this one tells us where the heaviest volume has been historically, and that gives us an indication of where the price will be pulled into in the short term. So in other words, we see the point of control price, which is right here at 41,970, and our momentum is heading down. So our obvious target price would be back down to the point of control price, where we have this great big volume profile candle that is sticking out right there, a bar. That's a bar, volume bar. And if we were to bounce off of that, we've got this big volume node that is up above. And that one is sitting at, let's see, it peaks out at approximately 47,700-ish. So that's where we could bounce upwards if we find support at the point of control price. If the momentum is strong enough, and if we have not made it to the bottom, let's say we get halfway down and we're still seeing a steep angle on the stochastic, and then we just end up right here at the point of control while we're still in this middle range. That would tell me that we've got a further drop to go, because we could drop down here into the oversold zone and complete a cycle, just like it does once in every while. Here's a bottom point, here's a bottom point. And sometimes you don't make it up to the top before you come back to the bottom. And you just have to wait it out and see what happens. It would be super easy to predict the market if every one of these cycles was even like a sine wave from top to bottom, top to bottom. But it's not that simple. We get this weird erratic motion where sometimes the stochastic hits to the top and it wants to stay up there. And then sometimes we come down and it wants to stay down here. And sometimes we want to stick in the middle. But we can at least tell what the possibility is for price if we end up here at this lower node and we have not completed the stochastic cycle. Now, if the stochastic jumps all the way down to here and we are sitting at this node, the next move is going to be up. But if we are still in the middle of the stochastic range, by the time price gets down here to this point of control, we got a little bit further to go. So where could it possibly go? Well, the chart tells us. Here's a big node sitting right there below, and that one is at 38,980. That tells us what the lowest price could be in the short term if we don't hold. All right, so I would give that less likely probability than settling down at the POC or jumping back up to this node. But it is possible. So all we can do is look at this chart and find out what is more probable. It doesn't mean that we can predict and know what's going to happen, because nobody can do that. And it's silly to sit and listen to the people on YouTube say that we're definitely moving up or definitely going to crash, and people who think that they have a crystal ball and want you to pay them hundreds of dollars a month because they know how to call the market. That gets very dangerous and scary. That's why I don't give financial advice, but I just try to shine a light in the forest so we can see our way through all of the madness. Now, let's jump to the 1 week chart, because it looks even different and can let us know where we are even from a bigger overall picture. Now, this makes it even more clear. So check this out. This is interesting. We see our momentum, how we had this humongous climb, massive correction, and then we had a double climb, and then massive correction, and then we come up again, but now we're sitting on a red candle on the weekly, where the stochastic was pointing straight up. See that momentum straight up? But now we're met with this red candle. So what's going to happen next? Well, what this tells me is that we could have a stochastic crossover right here, or we don't make it up to the top of this zone, into overbought zone. So if this red holds out and we get a correction, we see that the peak of the VPVR here on the 1 week chart kind of coincides with what we were seeing with that lower node on the 1 day chart at around 38K. Okay, now let's erase that and check out the MACD and see what it can tell us, because it gives us some clues too. According to the MACD, this correction might not last long on the 1 week chart, that is. See, we have to take all this into account. Now, looking downstairs, what do we see right here? There's two things. Number one, we have a crossover about to happen with the fast line and the slow line on the MACD oscillators. Is it guaranteed that this will hold and this crossover will happen and we hump up like this? No, it's not guaranteed. But we are also starting to form a green bar right there on the histogram. Now, in a perfect world, what this would tell us is that we come up, we go down. We come up, we go down, but then it bumped back up. And so when we complete this, we should do another hump on the top. But don't be too quick to think that this is exactly what's going to happen right here, because you saw it right in this area where you had a double hump. That's what I call a double hump camel right there. That can happen on both sides, or sometimes you can have a double hump on the negative side instead of completing a nice clean sine wave where we just go up and down, up and down. So judging from this stochastic combined with this red candle, there's no guarantee that we'll continue up here on the stochastic. But notice the other thing. Overall, the peaks on the MAC oscillators is going down. It's getting smaller and smaller. I'm thinking that we might have the possibility of one more correction and then the real run where we could come up from here and just go bananas. It's probably going to happen soon because we see the buying pressure. We see the institutional buyers, the big fat cats. We might wake up one day and we'll find that Apple is buying Bitcoin. We might hear that on the news. It could get crazy like that. But with all of the international events that are going on, and with Russia selling oil in terms of Bitcoin, and with countries adopting Bitcoin as their national currency, and things happening right here in the US, we don't know what could happen. But my theory is that there's going to be one last correction where the government tries to shake us all out before this next move happens. So if they can get as many people out as possible, it keeps us plebes working, because we got to have some people working these jobs. We can't all be rich at once. But once they shake this out, it could probably fly. And that's just my guess. It's not financial advice, but my guess. So that's about all I've got. I just wanted to kind of share that with you from the 4-hour all the way to this 1 week perspective. Let me know what you think. If you learned something new, please let me know in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. And join me next time. I'll be back to talk about how this cryptocurrency market unfolds as we head through the weekend. This is Carlton, and I am out.